Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to CMMA, California Mixed Martial Arts soldier. He is a former California State heavyweight champion. He is the one, and most recently got a big unanimous decision win at LFA this past weekend. He is the one and only Big Lou Schwenke. Lewis, what's going on, man?
Guys? Doing good, man. How about yourself?
Doing good, man, but not as good as you, because, I might be a heavyweight, but I don't carry it well. The damn COVID kind of got me all weird. But I, theoretically speaking, was in the heavyweight division way before the COVID. But I digress. I'm not putting out fantastic performances on UFC Fight Pass like you, good sir.
Yeah, it's been, it's crazy. This whole COVID thing has been... It's been lacking a lot of people's, schedules and, daily grind, but, I'm glad to be back in it.
Yeah, and the fact that you made essentially your pro debut, right? Am I wrong?
Yes.
For a big name promotion, literally one of the biggest and most prominent feeder systems to the UFC, and we've even sent some people to Bellator, off of their LFA kind of debuts or good showings and what have you. And you're there. You're putting in a little bit. You basically had your pro debut, your first fight out of state, and then also a first televised fight across the world. Crazy. All in one swoop.
Yeah. All in one.
Not bad at all. And Don McGuire says, good afternoon. Shout out to Don McGuire in the Fighter's Voice.
Hello, sir.
I mean, definitely we're going to talk about the win, but how did it, happen with the MMA? How did you get involved in it?
So the way I got into MMA was, I was still living in Samoa back at the time. And luckily for my family, we had cable TV. And so the thing was that my older brother was, always watching UFC. I actually wasn't into it at the time. I was just a regular kid playing games, doing homework. And what's crazy was back in the islands, I was actually studying law. So I was in law school at the time, yeah. And from there, I was watching UFC with my brother on a weekly basis. And so I just kept watching it. And once I knew I got into it, I was like, okay, that's something I want to do. It's as crazy as it sounds. And as much as it goes against our traditional values, it's something I just wanted to pursue.
Now, I almost feel like you gotta, put that in kind of your fight moniker or something, like the judge, jury, executioner, like the executioner,
yeah.
Blue Swinky, or what have you. The fact, law. Holy hell! How close are you to maybe attempting the bar?
Well, I had only just got past my first year of
Okay.
Law school. However, I was always within the top of my class.
It's a very promising future, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask, what attracted you to law? Because that's not an easy way to go down.
It is absolutely not easy. The only thing was after I had graduated with my associates, I was looking at other fields, in school that are related to what I graduated with. And then, I stumbled upon law and I was like, it's something I could possibly do, something I think I'm also good at. And, I just went for it.
That's it, but basically, finishing your first semester with high marks, right? High grades. And then Like, at what point did your brother is watching, the UFC and MMA at that time, but like, what kind of made you pivot from law, the traditional law,
Hmm.
to fisticuffs and fighting stuff?
You know, that's something I always ask myself, even up to this day. Like, if the transition was actually worth it. But honestly, I think, after watching the UFC events that I was exposed to, I think it was just something where I wanted to stand out, from the rest of the people that I know.
I like it. No, and I almost approach and look at life like, imagine, right? You're in a library or a bookstore, and there's
Hmm.
just at that one location, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of biographies on people's lives, right? And
Yeah.
what is going to happen in your life that might make somebody that really needs to hear and read your story, right, going to pick your book out of your book of life over
Hmm.
all of the other hundreds, if not thousands, that are just at that location, let alone everyone that has ever had a biography since the beginning of man.
Hmm. I mean, it all just comes down to, well, here's the thing too, is that, you are given the options and the choices, and also, you always have support of your family and friends. But at the end of the day, it's what you as your own individual, want to pursue, no matter how crazy it sounds. Uh, when I first told people I wanted to try out MMA, a lot of people thinking I was crazy, or, that I wasn't fit for it. But at the same time, I kind of wanted to get away from what people perceive me as, just block all that out and just chase, who I want to be.
Now, what were some of the, because I felt that was a prevailing theme of, like, the expectations or preconceived notions people had of you. So what were those before you kind of entered the sport of MMA?
Ooh. So, that's actually crazy because I actually had a lot of mixed, uh, just like mixed backgrounds of what people perceive me as. For example, when I was studying law, people were like, "Oh, you don't look like a lawyer," and at the same time, I'm like, what does a lawyer look like? Or, you know, you could be anybody you want.
Exactly. You could be anything or everything that you want to be. Not to say that your road is going to be paved in gold and what have you, but if you put
Hmm.
hard work, dedication, and put yourself in right situations where opportunity meets the I guess experience, and when those two
Hmm.
converge, amazing things could happen.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like,
Uh,
so adding to that was, so when I knew I wanted to be an MMA fighter, I was actually still living in the islands. The only thing is, back home we really don't have MMA.
right.
The closest thing we have is like judo, Muay Thai, but we never really had a set MMA school. And luckily, what exposed me to this opportunity was that my mother had, you know, asked me to live, if I can live with my sister out here in LA. And as soon as I heard that, I knew I wanted to do MMA. The opportunity came and I jumped right on it.
Wow, that's and I love how we've talked, like, I'm Fijian, right? It's kind of
Mhm.
like South Pacific, Melanesian, Polynesian.
Yeah.
The families are very important, and the fact that your brother is the one who introduced you to MMA, and then your
Hmm.
sister was one of the ones who gave you the opportunity to basically come over here and kind of fortify your dream.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Timing couldn't have been more perfect.
Now, I mean, so coming into it, right? So you had the law kind of acumen. So we knew you're an astute mind, but
Hmm.
in terms of, like, physicality, like, had you competed in any other sports back home in Samoa, or was it something that you kind of cut your teeth in here?
It's something I actually cut my teeth in over here. So, yeah, I mean, Like I said, I was training judo back home for a little bit, but it wasn't nothing too competitive. And maybe within my second year as I moved here, I got my feet wet and I did my first ever MMA fight.
Damn, like literally hit the ground running, didn't you? I, I was saying you hit the ground running when you got here.
Adam?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened.
no worries. No, I was saying you literally hit the ground running. Coming to the mainland.
Yeah, 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 big time.
So, and we've got some comments here. Tyson Duckworth, the reigning 145 champion in Alaska Fighting Champion, saying what's up, shouting out his team
Nice.
here. Yeah, and then
What's going on,
also Don,
Tyson?
and then Don McGuire actually wants to know what was it like having Mike Kendall announce your name this past Friday.
It was actually pretty cool. Like, having, going to the big show, having, more big announcers announcing your name. It was actually pretty cool. Like, as soon as I entered the whole LFA cage, it was a whole different environment. And not only that, because of the whole COVID thing, everything was, there was no audience, of course. So what really zoomed my mind was that what I really did like was, the cage was lit. The whole surrounding was black. It was dark. So from there, my mind really got to focus in this fight.
I mean, and in that, because everybody talks about in LFA, much like the UFC, I think they're the only promotion outside of the UFC that can actually call their cage an octagon. It's the LFA octagon. But,
Hmm.
my not having those, the crowd there, yes, of course, it raises the level of aura, in a particular
Yeah,
arena,
big
right?
time.
You've seen it countless times here in Southern California. Your title wins here, but also, if it's your pro debut and there's a lot on the line, it can be a little bit advantageous that there's no crowd because some of those octagon jitters kind of dissipate a little bit, and it can feel not much worse than maybe a hard sparring day at the gym.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not only that, like, audience does make a difference, but at the same time, when there's really nobody around, you're actually allowed. You're actually more able to focus in the fight.
No, 100%, 100%. You kind of zone in. And, some fighters will say that it doesn't even matter about the crowd because they're so kind of set phases to stun, where they're like a horse with the blinders and they don't
Hmm.
acknowledge anything else but their opponent and their coach's is teachings.
Yeah, yeah.
So that first fight that you had, to kind of dial it back a little bit, did I mean where were you training? I mean, were you always at CMMA, or was there another place that you trained prior to basically assuming with the team that you're in, assimilating with the
Uh,
team that you're in?
so actually, when I first moved here, I was training at a gym called Hard Body.
Okay.
It was basically like a fitness gym, and they also had their own MMA classes going on. And maybe within my first year and a half or second year, the gym had to close down due to
Wow.
the increase in rent. And from there, then I was looking for another gym. Stumbled upon CMMA, and I've been with them ever since. And that was back in 2015.
Whoa. So we're almost nearing a decade with your current gym.
Yeah, pretty much close.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, you being a bigger guy, obviously, from like the flyweights to featherweights,
Hmm.
CMMA is pretty much synonymous with those kind of lower class weight divisions. But coming in as a heavyweight, like a legit heavyweight, was it a bit hard to get training partners or?
Well, honestly, at first it was because there was only like maybe you know two or three of us at the time, but we started having more people come into the gym, And not only that, but even some of the middleweights or light heavyweights, these guys can pose a real threat, and they
Hmm.
basically hit you like a heavyweight. So,
Oh, Chad George can hit you like a heavyweight. That
oh yeah, I mean, I'm talking about people like we have Ozzy Diaz. We also have
yes.
one of our guy Ray Hawkins, and then we have Josh.
Yeah, the War Master Josh Barnett, who
Yeah.
flanked you and went and assumed the coaching position at LFA in
Mhm.
Shawnee, Oklahoma. Which for a heavyweight, is there a better kind of coach mentorship relationship that you could have that arguably, in my estimation, one of the top 10 heavyweights in all of combat sports of all time?
Oh no, having Josh in the corner of the fight was actually amazing. What was crazy too is I was not nervous, but I was a little like I guess you could say nervous. Just because I don't know Josh too much on a personal level like that. Aside from outside the gym, but talking to him throughout the whole entire trip, it kind of calmed my nerves. I got to know him a little better, and it was actually very great having him in my corner. I learned a lot with him.
No, 100%. And it's he's been on this podcast the couple times that he's been on Rogan. Like most people are shocked about how introspective and knowledgeable that he is. He almost every misconception that the rest of the world has about a heavyweight cage fighter, he dashes them completely. Like
Oh yeah,
he's not any of that, but
like
he is.
if you oh,
Oh, go
if you
go
have
for it.
somebody like that or Chad, it's always great to pick their mind apart. You build yourself as a character, from there.
No, 1,000%. And his moniker. He went from the babyface assassin to the War Master, but it's absolutely true. He is a master of war, right? I think
Yes.
other than Brock Lesnar having an NCAA title and a WWE title, I
Hmm.
think in terms of most decorated, I think it's Lesnar, Barnett, Overeem are the most decorated heavyweights that there's ever been. You know, maybe
Yeah,
you put a
yeah, definitely.
Mark Hunt there as well, but yeah, in terms of goals and what have you, and again, game plans Josh has won a Metamoris title of grappling. A multi-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, right? Gi and no gi,
Yeah,
and threw on the gi just to compete, just to put it out there, right? Metamoris world champion, competed in bare knuckle, a former, prior to John Jones, the youngest UFC champion
youngest
that
UFC
there.
heavyweight. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the way that he approaches fights and more so game plans. It's very unique. But
Hmm.
he would have fit in the early. Even the earlier, the UFC one days or the early days of Pride, or hell, I would love to see him and Genghis Khan kind of go at it. I think Josh would put up a pretty good fight. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah. Not only that, but yeah, the way he approaches fight, but his philosophy on a lot of things are amazing.
Yeah, no, and and it's funny because again, a lot of people aren't they're pleasantly surprised, because they're
Hmm.
like, oh, UFC heavyweight or Bellator heavyweight or just cage fighting, right? And
Hmm.
it's almost like he shows you that you are not just the one thing. You're the sum of all of your parts, all of your experiences, all of the training, all of the training in life that you had before you even stepped into the gym. All of those come into play, right? And how you're going to perceive a particular situation. So getting
Yeah.
down to the heart of the matter and basically figuring out what your why is and then
Hmm.
executing that game plan. Yeah, I don't think there's too many better.
Oh no, no. It's
Now,
always great to
uh,
have somebody like that with you.
No, 100%, 100%. But again, CMMA, right? Chad Savage George, who you pretty much had from the, the almost the epiphany. I mean, the very start of your career, right? So
Hmm.
this is somebody also who approaches the fights in a manner that I don't want to say too often don't, but like, you hear guys like, you know, I mean, just coaches all over. They're like,
Hmm.
if my team loses to, a CMMA guy or a UWF USA guy or gal, like it's not really that much of a loss because again, this is a well formulated game plan between the two, Savage and War Master, that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
basically, put into all of you guys and girls there in South Bay and Gardena, and this is it, and that's why like a loss, it's almost like a showing of themselves, right, and showing of the team and everything.
yeah, yeah. It's basically like a reputation
Hmm.
that we know we're trying to uphold as well.
Yeah, 100%. Now, did you? Because your mom is the one who kind of like nudged you to go live with your sister. Um, did was it apparent to her before you left the island that hey, you wanted to cage fight?
Oh, wait, can you say that again?
Was it apparent to your mom when she sent you over that you were going to fight?
Well, I was actually here just to actually help my sister run the business. However, I did tell my parents, as I'm gonna move there, I want a cage fight. They thought I was crazy, but yeah, they thought I was crazy, but they accepted the fact that it was something I wanted to do, as long as I, train hard for it.
Now, I have had the fortunate instance of running into your dad through the course of fights and interviewing you over the years. Um, like, what I mean, what's his kind of take now? Like, how does how does he feel about you fighting now?
Well, now that you know, every time that I, come back with, good news, they get a little more comfortable with it.
Do they ever kind of like kind of coax you back into law?
Ooh, no, no, not really, actually.
Good. That means you made a good decision, Lou.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm glad. Hell yes.
Yeah,
Because
so
not
like at first, there were times where they were just trying to talk me out of it, but no, I couldn't do it.
absolutely. And again, you can always come back to law. You hear of like 70-year-olds, attaining their master's degree. Never give up. You can still do it. But in terms of like if you had started MMA at 35, probably wouldn't be that great.
Yeah, yeah.
So after your first fight, what did you? I guess the preconceived notions that you had of because I mean it looked like you over the course of watching with your brothers, you kind of knew what you were getting into. But were there any misconceptions that you had of what this was by the time you entered the cage the first time?
Uh, well, yeah, I did have a few misconceptions, like as far as when I first watched it, it could be like any typical audience where they think that some of the things are a little easier than it seems. But and not only that, a lot of people just think that you're going in as a tough guy. However, that it's a real chess game. Like there's a lot of breaking down specific things, and one little mistake can cost everything.
No, 1,000%, 1,000%. And I think it's fun because you actually had a little bit of grappling prowess, in your kind of brief iterations of judo, right? But
Hmm.
you know, I wouldn't think that you would be the just stand up guy, but that's some of the things that you could hear from those filthy casuals that are like,
Yeah,
oh, you're in
all
the
the time.
ground, just stand up. Don't tell me you're one of those guys
No, no,
until you
I
get
was I
there.
was never.
Okay.
Well, what's crazy too was one person who firstly inspired me as far as MMA was actually Frank Mir. And
Really?
yeah, and seeing him, with his, jiu-jitsu game, it actually opened up a lot more stuff on what you could do all around.
Yeah, no, 100%. And Tyson says 1,000%. No, I couldn't agree with you anymore. And I would even put, Josh in there as well because, prior to their kind of, I mean, we did see a little bit with like Mark Kerr and
Hmm.
Mark Coleman, but in terms of like high levels, like submission artists and heavyweights, you know, I mean, the first kind of heavyweight division in Bellator were just like big sloppy heavyweights like Ron Sparks and Eric Prindle, who look like, I mean, roided to the gills, and just
Yeah, yeah,
slinging fists, slinging leather until like 45 seconds into the fight, and they were like,
just
oh,
all
sucking
gassed
in
out.
air. Yeah, absolutely. But it would, if not for, I'd say like Kerr, Barnett, Coleman, and Mirror, you didn't see like high level like grappling in the heavyweight
Hmm.
division because I mean you didn't need it. I mean the acumen of the sport in the heavyweight division wasn't there. Cardio
Yeah,
wasn't even a thing until about like 10, 15 years ago, maybe.
yeah, yeah. It was actually still pretty recent where guys like that really paved the way of breaking away from the whole heavyweight division expectations.
Yeah,
So, now
absolutely.
you have guys that can grapple, guys who can strike. And if you think about it, those are the most deadliest heavyweights, of all time.
Yeah, and it's funny because the lower weight classes, it seemed like with the Anderson Silva or the Mighty Mouse, and
Hmm.
the light heavyweight with John Jones, they in terms of the pound for pound, you know. At times, in different kind of eras of MMA, they would actually supersede the heavyweights in terms of all around knowledge, GSP,
Yeah,
right? Like, all around knowledge. But it seems like in the last, especially the last, like, I'd say 5 to 7 years, the level of heavyweight competition is just like exploded.
yes, big time.
I was want to pinpoint it to like Pat Barry. Pat Barry was like, "Oh, screw all this. I don't. I'm gonna go back to kickboxing because
Yeah,
like
it's gonna
I
go
don't
straight
want to
into,
grapple."
yeah, just striking all the time. But if you kind of being one dimensional as far as like a heavyweight, there are times where it does work, but in certain situations you're gonna have to need everything.
No, 1,000%, 1,000%. Yeah, and in a game that is so kind of reliant on literally macro inches, right? Like
Hmm.
fractions, millimeters, milliseconds to get to a guard. We saw it with God, Mitrione and Fedor, right? Like the
Okay,
quickest one to
yes,
the
that is
where
very true. Yeah, they
double
both got
knockout,
knocked down at the same time, and
and
whoever was
Mitrione
the
was just,
quickest one up,
yeah, and that's it, and
that's who
that's
got
what
the
got
win.
him the
Yeah.
right. And so to be as multi-dimensional and diverse as you absolutely can be, and that's not just with MMA, but that's life. But definitely in
Yes.
MMA,
Yeah.
it variety is the spice of life.
Yeah. I mean, that is very true. What's actually pretty cool is that from my gym, Chad George, you know, every time after practice, he always tells us that the way we train is the way we can also advance in our life.
Hmm.
And it's actually absolutely very true. We translate, we translate the way we train to our life, or also vice versa at the same time.
No, 1,000%. That's why a lot of people might not like a guy like Brendan Schaub, right? But
Hmm.
this is somebody, win, lose, or draw, is making more money as a comedian and a podcaster than he ever did playing
And
in the
yeah,
the one season that he played in the NFL, or the entire time that he was in NCAA at the University of Colorado, the entire time that he was one of the top heavyweights in MMA at one point, right? He's making so much more because he applied that kind of ideology of being a fighter, of being an athlete, to every other thing that he did, and you know he basically did it to the umpteenth degree.
Yeah, and that was actually very smart because you know it's unfortunate. Very unfortunate to say that MMA is a forever career, but you know, at the same time, you also got to build yourself outside of MMA. If you really want to succeed.
No, 1,000%. And it's funny because here we are in a day and an age where you know you could you could kind of fake it to make it, right? You can
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a social media profile and all this and everything and get to be there. But also, to be a fighter, to be anything, right? You can't just focus on just being a good fighter, right? Listening to your coaches. You need a little bit of I guess je ne sais quoi or pizzazz. You need some sizzle to the steak, right? If you're
Hmm.
training your coaches, the way you fight is your steak. People want a little bit more than that because there's a wide world that's just beyond MMA that you're gonna have to appeal to. If Dana White is saying, "Hey, this is not a career. This is an opportunity," right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely.
you have to make the most of your opportunity.
Yeah, and there's actually like a lot of people also like let's say in the UFC who are listed as overqualified because of the other opportunities that they have seized, outside of MMA. For
Yeah.
example, I want to say Bryce Mitchell. He graduated. Um, another good person is Joe Lozon, I believe.
Yes.
I think Joe Lozon is I believe he's like an IT, outside of MMA.
Mm-hmm.
So
Um.
there's always more outside, but while the opportunity is here, you have to take it as quick as you can because time is always ticking.
Yeah. I mean, Rich Franklin, right, was a
Oh
school
yeah,
teacher
that's
with
another one.
umpteenth degrees and basically ended up fighting, winning a UFC title. Now he's got a front office position at one championship over in Asia, and it's because he earned it. It's not because he's just former fighter. Like he earned it. Guys like apparently James Krause is a multimillionaire. He's a multimillionaire owning like a bunch of Metro PCS stores in the Missouri territory and owns Glory MMA, like owns the land that it sits on, built the thing from scratch. Like he's a multimillionaire. What's the guy on YouTube? Uh, Miles Jury. Miles Jury is literally putting out content every week, if not like a
Hmm.
couple times a week, where talking about like the financial breakdowns of being a fighter and what have you, and how you could use it to you know invest in real estate and do other things. Like he's fighting for fun. He doesn't need the money. He's
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Bellator now, but he's doing it just to prove something to himself because he's already set in terms of his lifestyle, outside of the cage.
Hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's also sad too is that there are some people who can't really get their outside MMA lifestyle together, and some of them keep fighting way past their. I'm talking about way past their prime age when they really don't need to. You're
No,
just damaging yourself.
No, 1,000%, and the quality of life that you're gonna have after, when the lights fade and the fans aren't as loud in
Hmm.
receiving you as they were before, you know, but you have to go home to your family and
Yeah,
be there
yeah,
for
that
your family and
definitely.
live for hopefully another 40 plus years after your career is done.
Hmm. Yeah, that is absolutely true.
hmm Now let's talk about the fight because this was a big one, right? LFA. You had Josh Barnett as your cornerman. This was your first out of state fight. This was your pro
Mhm.
debut. You had, luminaries as Laura Sanko, Ron Kruk, and Cub Swanson, basically calling your fight. Man,
Mhm.
I mean, in retrospect, that is a lot of pressure. But did you feel any of it going into it?
Honestly, I did not really feel any of it. I was more focused on the fight than anything.
Now,
Like
how is
the
flying
priority
out?
of the fight happened to come first.
How is flying out?
Well, flying out wasn't too bad. I've been on long trips, so I'm used to the flights.
I mean, but as a heavyweight, I mean, it's not like you had to do anything like you cut a crazy amount of weight, as you're flying, right?
No.
That's a good deal. That's a good deal.
I mean,
No,
I'm not gonna lie. Like, you know, the process of getting everything together because I was notified 3 weeks before the fight. For the fight, I was notified only 3 weeks, and within that slight time frame, getting everything prepped, some while training at the same time, it could be a hassle.
no,
There
a
was a lot
thousand
of
percent.
stressful times. Prepping everything, getting my mind set for the fight, and training at the same time. It was hard on my, it was hard.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of, because had the pleasure of speaking with you, after you won the California state title, right? And
Hmm.
you know, to amateurs here in California, for those who are, who are uninitiated, but you know, as an amateur, the California state title is usually the last kind of feather in the cap before one goes pro. So,
Hmm.
were you already planning to go pro after your title win, or
Oh
what was the
yeah.
case?
So after that camo fight, where I won the state title, that was definitely like the cherry on top, for the fight for me to go pro. And for that fight too, it was against a very a well known opponent that everybody was looking at. Everybody had his eyes on him too.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Now, I mean, coming up because that was what 2019, right?
2019 September, yeah.
Yeah. So, were you kind of looking at 2020 as a time to basically get your pro debut in?
Yeah, so we were actually looking at I believe it was January or February of 2020, or is it somewhere around there. But we were looking at those dates, and of course, that event didn't really happen afterwards. So I just kept training. Then COVID hit, it just shut everything down.
Now, I mean, obviously, there's a multitude of emotions, right? This is something that in our generation and generations before, you know, didn't really have any reference point to, right? I mean,
Mhm.
unless you knew somebody that lived through, the stock market crash in 1920 and the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
Without that, like, there aren't too many people, at least in my kind of wheelhouse, that had been through that the first time. So this is something that is absolutely unique, right? And then you're a fighter who obviously you want your wants and needs, and your window of success in this sport is very finite. So to have a whole year kind of blocked out, I saw things like amateurs that turn pro just out of necessity to get a fight out of state, so they could get their iron sharpened.
Mhm.
Um, did you see some of that happening in the gym?
Oh yeah, big time. There was at the time, almost everybody had set fights.
Yeah.
Then all of them canceled. The other unfortunate event was gyms closed down. So but as a fighter, you really have to also look at that. You also have to compensate if something like this happens. Like for example, even outside the gym when everything was closed, I was still running. Still trying to keep fit because if you're just being if you're stationary the whole time, it's gonna be hard to break out of the habit.
No, 1,000%. Which I mean that speaks of a very strong mind, strong will. So I mean, where did that? What kept you motivated? Was it just like, hey, at some point you were gonna have to pay the piper in Chad and Josh, and you didn't want to come in overweight when you guys eventually opened back up, or was it like just something innate in you to prove to yourself? Like, what kept you motivated during that kind of dark time?
Well, so during that whole lockdown, it was actually from Chad. Uh, what I'm very grateful about for Chad is that he speaks about the mindset all the time, and that you always have to keep pushing. Don't quit. Um, Stay busy all the time, and not only that, but learning about the mindset from Chad, he gave me a lot of good tips that really helped me in this fight. Like, man, you should have seen my opponent for this fight. So like I had all the reasons to mentally break down. If you see my opponent, he was 6'9",
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yep.
maybe about 10 pounds heavier than me, ripped, and during the in within the fight, he should have seen the way he was looking at me. It was pretty crazy.
I saw
But
it. I caught it.
yeah, but you know what I learned from Chad was in order for you would have to be mentally tough in order for you not to break down. So in order, like the only way that you could break down is if your mind breaks down first, and that's what I took with me to the fight. I did not break for a minute.
That's amazing. And again, we were talking about things that kind of, as a byproduct of MMA and being involved with the sport, that kind of feed into different facets of your own personal life, right?
Hmm.
How you know a strong will, strong mindset, taking into relationships with family, of significant others, of business, of occupation wise. Those are very crucial. It's a crucial component to have success in all facets of your life.
Hmm. Yeah, that is absolutely true.
So I get 3 weeks out, right?
Yeah.
And you're fighting for LFA. What was your initial reaction?
Oh man. So luckily, the great thing was, I was still training, I was still active. Uh, and if most people know, I don't sleep much. Uh, and most times of the day, I would train 2 to 3 times a day, almost every day. And prior to that 3 week call out, there were times I didn't even have a day off of training, well, which I find pretty crazy. But I need the rest. But so I was getting ready for jujitsu training on a Tuesday. I believe I was notified on the 11th. Uh, I took a quick nap in my car after work right before training. Checked my phone. I see that I have a fight LFA. I was like, well, 3 weeks out. Now I just got to push the pace a lot higher.
That's man, and again, that just shows your iron will and resolve to get the task done, because you're like, yeah, this is what I've been waiting for. This is what I've been working towards, and here it
Yeah,
is.
definitely.
No
I mean,
ducking, no.
what's great too is that Chad encourages us to train a lot and as hard as we can. That way, in case we get a short notice fight, we're able to take it. You have to seize every opportunity that you get.
No, 1,000%, a thousand
Yeah.
percent. No, again, the trip to Shawnee, Oklahoma. What was it like? Because obviously, COVID restrictions here in California are different than the rest of the world.
Mhm.
So when you touch down, after almost like over a year of kind of COVID restrictions here, what did you find? Different or same
Okay.
to as
So
Oklahoma?
so what's crazy is that the first thing I noticed was that there are no mask restrictions out there. Everything was mask advisory. So now it's kind of like now within this whole year, about to be on 2 years this year,
Hmm.
it kind of felt weird going around without the mask. Now this whole mask thing starting to become a daily lifestyle that when you're adjusting back to the way things were, it seems weird at first.
No, I agree. I mean, there are times of cringe on both sides of
Hmm.
the argument and the philosophy behind it. But yeah, man, it can be weird, and that's also like this podcast, right? Is just kind of reaching out to everybody and go like, hey, what's going on in your neck of the woods? Because like I'm in a area where like I'm 2 blocks removed from the major streets, right? So
Huh.
I can only see the apartment across the street from me and nothing else.
Yeah.
So I've got a very warped view, and it's because of the podcast that I'm maybe like, oh, what are the people in the UK doing? What are the people in Texas doing? What are Louisiana? What does Florida look like? What does Maine look like? And it's just like, because I think as much as people have let each other down over the last year, I think the only way to get out of this is with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. It's always good to communicate. Within different parts of the country. That way, you're also getting feedback from how everything is and how it's looking like over there, just as you said.
No, 100%. Now, unanimous decision win. Were you pretty happy? Because I mean, all 3 judges scored your way. I'm sure as a heavyweight, you probably wanted to finish, but I mean, were you proud of what you were able to accomplish?
You know what? You know, honestly, no, I'm not happy at all with the way I won. And a lot of people might be saying I'm too hard on myself or I'm beating myself up. But at the end of the day, it's what I think and what I feel. Um, like there were a couple mistakes I made in the fight, and I'm ready to make up for it, ready to train again to fix on these. For example, I didn't execute some of the game plans that we worked on. Uh, my conditioning wasn't up to par, and that's for certain. But it can all change now.
No, 1,000%. And many of the times, right, you learn more of from a loss, right? Whether it be fight, whether it
Yeah.
be life, than you do, when you win, when you get that position, when you get the way that you wanted to happen, you have your vision board about, and you want this, and you envision it this way. Well, because it didn't happen the way that it did, well, you're going to probably be a little bit more hard on yourself, right? And not to
Yeah.
a deprecating degree, but it's almost like, okay, every person that has ever done anything great in life, right, has been very critical of oneself, right? You
Hmm.
don't you don't just get like, Elon Musk, right? It might be a controversial figure to some. I think to have a mind like that, especially with disabilities and what have you, I think it's incredible, right? But you don't like. I guarantee you, he thinks more about his the faults than all the other things that he's been able to accomplish. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, whatever uh, Warren Buffett, people of political, financial, athletic, inventor, what have you. Any
Hmm.
like if they really are about improving their craft and the way of life, not just for themselves but the way around them, everyone around them, you basically learn a little bit more from the things that you didn't do versus the things you did.
Yeah, that is true.
So, after the fight, were you able to get some grub in Shawnee?
Oh yeah. So right after the fight, me and Josh went to a steakhouse, and yeah, they were just bringing all kinds of different meat. Personally, I've never been to one, but it was actually pretty good, and I got myself full as heck.
I mean, a job well done. You deserve the meat sweats after. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
Uh,
obviously,
oh,
being in Shawnee, it's a little bit different than Southern California. I mean,
mhm.
what would your normal post fight meal look like versus the one that you had with the War Master in Shawnee?
So normally after fights, I don't eat nothing. Well, to me, I consider that fancy. But I actually, I just eat like, I love ribs.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my top food. But a steakhouse where food's coming nonstop. was actually pretty amazing.
Was it like a Oklahoma like steakhouse, or was it more Brazilian? Or
You know, I want to say Brazilian.
yeah, because they had the little like wooden die and the green light, red light type
Yes,
deal.
exactly. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly what they had. Yeah.
yeah. That's and it's good meat. Like you don't get full. Like you almost having those good choices of meat and what have you. You almost don't get full as fast because there aren't any fillers. You just eat it. It's just like pure
Yeah, yeah,
water. You can
yeah.
drink it all day
That's
and
it.
not feel full, you know?
Yeah.
So, I guess because you're not doesn't look like you're too injured, right? Are you guys eyeing? You don't have to say it like now, but like, are you eyeing on maybe a return to the cage like by the end of the year?
Oh yeah. You know, maybe within the end of the year, I want to get at least two more fights in before the year ends.
Okay.
But the way this fight finished, I wasn't satisfied. So now I feel like I'm just gonna have to train harder and just get back in there again. To prove the world, and not only that, but to prove myself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. To prove to yourself, the world can laud you as accomplished and a genius and all of the
Hmm.
things that you absolutely are. But if you are not cool with the person standing in the mirror in front of you, then what the hell is it all for?
Yeah, that is true. Like even though it was a win, honestly, to me it was a loss. I don't take pride or any glory at all in this. In that fight.
Really?
Yeah, and like I said, people could be, people say I could be a little too harsh on myself, but I felt like I could have done a little better.
And that to me, I just think that's a mark of greatness, right? Because you always want to improve. You obviously strengthen the things that you're strong at, but you also
Hmm.
want to, strengthen the things that you're weakest in. And the minute that you stop doing that, like your existence in this kind of universe, what have you, it you almost chop it off at the legs. Like you don't get the
Yeah,
full
yeah, exactly.
experience of being a human, of going through life.
Hmm.
And that's usually where regret happens too. So that's not cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not cool, but at the same time, it's also not self criticism, but it's self building.
Yes.
You're building yourself as a character.
No, 100%. Now, speaking of characters, right? Obviously, a former law student, a badass mixed martial artist, heavyweight. But what are some things that people might not know about you? Any guilty pleasures of one big blue Swinky?
So to me, I think I'm just a regular, typical guy. I love video games. That's one of my hobbies. I love horror video games. So games like Resident Evil.
Hmm.
It's always my top things I love to do. Um, other than that, to spend time with my family most of the time, and the people closest to me at the gym, they know I'm also a goofy person.
I've seen it too.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm just a goofy person on the outside as well.
I like it. No, absolutely. That's one of the many reasons why you and I get along because you're awesome, especially at the times where you're supporting your teammates, right? And you don't
Oh
actually
yeah,
have to fight yourself. I think if you did an open mic somewhere, you'd do fine. Like at a
oh yeah,
comedy
yeah,
club,
definitely.
you do fine. Now, do you have a favorite movie?
Ooh, uh, you know, honestly, I have too many to list,
Let's take
but
some down. Let's do like top 10 in no particular order.
okay. Well, I like the movie Judge Dredd. I'm not sure if you
Okay.
guys ever watched it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, Stallone, right?
yeah. So they had the Stallone, and then they had another one that they made in 2012. That was a great one.
Okay, I gotta check
I
that
like
out.
movies like that. Terminator. Again, Resident Evil. Any type of zombie movies actually. Any zombie movies I love.
Really?
Yeah,
Did you see the Dave Bautista one on Netflix?
I did, and I thought that movie was great. However, they did make a similar movie somewhere in Asia. I forgot where, but the storyline basically nearly matched, even though it was a different setting.
Yeah, that's one thing American cinema does, especially in the genre of horror movies. I mean, Ring versus Ringu.
Yeah,
You
yeah, that's
know?
true. I mean, not only
Yeah,
that, but sometimes I'm starting to think they're running out of ideas where the plot can be definitely predictable.
yeah. Now you would have probably favored the the Dave Bautista zombie movie a little bit better if you had seen what they did in wrestling, where they actually had zombies surround the ring in a match. Like,
That
yeah,
actually would have been interesting to watch.
I'm gonna send you a link, and you're gonna like, what the hell? Like,
Oh,
it's
for sure.
just,
I'll definitely watch that. I'm also a
yeah,
fan of wrestling too. I love watching some of their stuff. And not
yeah,
only that, wrestling was a big topic that me and Josh always had all the time as far as you know, me trying to talk to him outside as a person, because
yeah,
he's a wrestling person as well.
yeah. I mean, I think when he was on this podcast, I think like we spent 15 minutes on his career, 45 talking about wrestling.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can only imagine.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm wearing like a Great Muda or Kenji Moto versus
Oh, I see that.
John Fry tag team match from All Japan. Like I'm a weird wrestling guy. I'm weird. I like him wrestling is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy too? Another fact. Before MMA, I've always no, I was very curious about professional wrestling and wanted to try that out. But again, we don't have that out there back home.
Hmm. Well, and it's crazy because you're being Samoan, right? We've got the Anawahi family, and
Yeah,
that's huge, right? I mean, none other than like Dwayne the Rock Johnson, a part of that ensemble. You've got Roman Reigns, you've got Yokozuna, Rikishi. I mean, I would even say there's definitively more Samoans in wrestling than there are in MMA, and I would even say like Polynesians as a whole. I mean, Fiji, we
yeah,
had
yeah, yeah. That
Jimmy
that that is
Snuka,
definitely true.
which I almost wish, especially with iterations of you and a litany of others like Tahitian fighters. We don't even have Fiji. We don't have a a Fijian born mixed martial artist. That's something I would
Yeah,
love to see. Like because it's just we are people. Yes, we're hospitable, but we're also kick-ass warriors too. We
yeah,
should be
yeah.
we should
And,
be
and
here.
that's something that's also interesting because that's something also that most Polynesians are also trying to push. Not where we represent our own ethnicity or our own race, but we're also trying to push out every single other island or every Pacific Islander ethnicity. Where we can try to encourage people to join MMA or we're trying to break out the window that here's another option that you guys are possibly good at where you can also try to sell yourself because of what you guys are.
Yeah, and literally better like a generational wealth thing where you
Hmm.
give not just your family but also your village, your town something to believe in, right? Because
Yeah,
sometimes you almost have to be a mainlander to kind of like appreciate being in an island. But when you're in the island, that's one of the reasons why my mom came over is because outside of tourism, and this was what 82, like
hmm
there really wasn't much for her. So
yeah.
it
It's kind of the same way now. Opportunities are very limited, but you're just gonna have to capitalize on anything you have, and but you're also gonna have to make the most of it.
100%, and that's one of the things that you've done impeccably well, and I'm proud of you, dude. Like
Thank you.
you're big little brother, like you're huge.
Yeah,
You're a little brother, man. I just appreciate you. But obviously, there have been a lot of people who have helped you get to where you are now with that big win at LFA behind you. So take as long as you need. Let's get some shout outs out of the way.
Oh yeah. So the people I want to shout out was Chad George, Josh Barnett. I also want to give a shout out, to my main brother at the gym, Ray Hawkins. Another person also helping me in this fight was Ray. I'm sorry, Ozzy Diaz, uh,
Yes?
Jesse Merritt, and Spencer Smith. So oh yeah, another one was David Waters. So these were the guys who are pushing me daily, and not only that, but these guys push me close to breaking point all the time, and that's something I want to tell you guys is thank you. You guys almost kill me every day.
Yeah. Oh, and then also you got some family love and even some sponsor love, right? So let's
Yeah.
get those out there too.
Oh, so also want to thank Iridium Sports Agency setting this whole thing up. Also, thank you to Sheath Underwear for supporting my fights.
Yeah, dude, the ensemble that they have there at Sheath is amazing. I even got for my wife, they had this like nice little like workout top and
Hmm,
bottom. So Sheath underwear, a supporter of Lou Swinky, a supporter of the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast with the great Eddie Torres, who's a friend to not just me but also one of your coaches, Josh Barnett.
yeah,
So shout out to Sheath for supporting good fucking people, and they're also sponsors of the LFA. So shout out to
yeah.
Sheath Underwear.
Thank you guys.
Absolutely. And last but very not least, there's going to be people that want to follow the enigma that is the Samoan kid, Big Lou Schwenke. So where can they find you, good sir, on social media?
So you guys can find me on social media. My Instagram and my Twitter are the same. It's Samoan Kid 93. That's SAMOAND. I'm sorry, SAMOANKIDD 93.
Yep, just like you eloquently put right there.
Right there.
I like what you did there. 100%. And then, obviously, Lou, congratulations on your win. Can't wait to see more of it. And thank you guys for joining us here at According to Woods. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I mean, Big Lou, you're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
Oh yes, I am. Of course, all day, every day.
Yeah, so be like Lou and go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. But if you don't believe me or Big Lou Swinky, and I don't know why you wouldn't, here's Pro Wrestler Zeta Zhang to convince you.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe.